I just got my hands on the new Lyman Torque driver, which is rather impressive. If you guys need a torque driver, you've probably been steered toward the Wheeler, which isn't bad, but there are definitely a lot of improvements in the Lyman over the Wheeler. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about that are new to guns, most items that you attach to guns have torque specs, specifically scopes. And torque is measured in newtons if you're taking physics. I believe it's foot-pounds if you're dealing with the automotive industry, and it's inch-pounds if you're dealing with small things. Torque is the amount of force that you apply to drive a screw into a hole so that you don't over tighten it. And there are various mechanisms and reasons as to why you wouldn't want to over tighten. Some mechanisms, like watches, mechanical items, won't work if the screw gets over tightened. Things are too tight, they bind. You can even bend brackets and delicate pieces. So you only want that screw turned in a specific amount. And then usually you bind it with a Loctite, either red or blue, maybe Vibratite if you want. But more and more, as we see guns getting fancier, and in fact cars getting fancier, you'll get things like carbon fiber and other plastic doodads. And if you over tighten, the old way was how much do you tighten something? Well, you turn it until you hear it crack, and then you back off a quarter turn. If you get the torque specs, you don't need to do that. You don't need to break your stuff. Some of the carbon fiber additions for the fore ends and the handle grips and the buttstocks are rather delicate. Some of the tubes get crushed rather easily if you over tighten the scope mounts. So a torque wrench is a good way to go, or a torque driver is a good way to go. Torque wrench, out of habit. This one from Wheeler, as you can see, works by pulling the bottom and adjusting up, and then you get a line there. And this one really works well from 10 to 80 pounds. When you turn it and you reach the maximum tightness of the screw, what happens is it starts to slip in quarter turn increments, and you know you've tightened enough. And that is pretty much the way it works. There is a digital version that I like a little bit better for the Wheeler, but that's the Wheeler. For the Wheeler, it does tend to roll a little bit if that's not your thing. The reason that I like the Lyman is it goes from 10 to 80. Again, if I can get to focus, it goes like that with 1 pound increments on the bottom. It is calibrated before it comes. You set this by pulling down the knurled end and twisting that, and it moves up as it goes. And the same thing, as you reach the maximum torque and the screw gets tightened in there, it will turn in quarter turn increments. So the good and the bad and the ugly. I like this because, unlike the Wheeler, it's a little bit grippier, fits your hand a little bit better, feels more substantial, comes with a full array of bits, as does the Wheeler. This box, which is nice to keep the moisture out of it if you're going to keep this in your garage for your workbench. It also, unlike the Wheeler, has the nut on the front end, so that if you're working at the higher levels and you need to put a wrench on there, you can really wrench it down to turn it. That's not available on the Wheeler. The downside of both of these is you have to adjust from 10 up to 80 if you're going to work at 80, and then back down to 15 if you're going to work at 15. So that is the only detriment. But if you have to pick between one of the two, the new Lyman, I really feel, is the way to go. Unless you want to spend a couple $100 on something like the Fix-It sticks, which have individual marked torque bits. Let's see if I can. So that one's for 20 pounds. And then as you can see over to the right, they go down from 25, 15, 10, 6, 0.45. And that way you don't have to twist to set, you just pop the new one in. And when you reach the maximum torque, this one gives an audible click as opposed to just slipping and letting you feel it. These are much better than everything, but you're probably looking, when you look and adjust this, that's probably $500 or $600 worth of torque bits. They do make one that tries to cover everything. So you've got the 0 to 65 in one torque bit that you could buy singly with a $20 ratchet and do most of your work that way. I still like them individually, but if you're limited and you're choosing between the cheaper ways to handle things, this is the tool you want to go with. This really is the creme de la creme for torque drivers in my mind. Like I said, with everything from the way it adjusts, it feels more substantial. The bits they give you, one last time to zoom, the bits that they give you are concave, unlike regular screwdriver bits. So that allows you to get the maximum surface area in the screw head, which will let you tighten your fasteners easily. But if you're dealing with guns, carbon fiber, disassembly, mounting scopes, you really need to add a torque driver to your repertoire of tools.